Damage. Damage. Any kind of damage. You may have a parasite in there or some kind of blood flow problem. A blood flow problem to that part of your brain. It might just shut down. It might be genetic. I mean, there's a whole bunch of factors that can really affect it. Okay. Now, can somebody get me a knife? Actually, I can cut it with the scalpel.
Nobody wants to see.
And I have to wash this. Disgusting.
You'll be able to send the video.
Like a weird.
I think so.
Oh my god.
Okay. All right.
Smells like what?
You serious?
What kind of seafood have you been eating?
Smells like urine.
Oh, I don't really like.
Smells like urine.
Okay. So, this is your. Let me see which one's better.
It looks like chicken.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay. So if you guys in the front want to come over here, because I'm doing the half. I cut it in half. Okay.
It looks like
All right. So
chicken.
now this part of your brain. Okay. I want you to note. First of all, I told you that the more surface area you have, okay, the more gray matter you have. So I want you to see that this is white matter in the middle, and there's gray matter all the way around that white matter. Okay, so you see that little vein right there, these little veins of white matter? Everything else around it is gray matter. It looks like a tree. We call it it's actually called, the white matter is called arbor vitae, the tree of life. I don't know why it's called that, but it is. But I want you to note also all of the gray matter around it. That's all cell bodies. There are over 100,000 neurons just in your cerebellum alone. Because remember what it does is coordination. Okay, so there's lots of neurons in that area. So that's where you could see all of those neurons because of the gray matter. Whenever you see gray matter, you know that's neuronal cell bodies, remember? And so here's kind of the same thing. So we're going to cut this in half so we can see some of the gray matter. I'm going to do that really quick. Okay, so do you see the white matter in the middle?
What are you serving tonight?
Okay, and then we don't call this arbor vitae is only in the cerebellum. And then here is this white matter. Okay,
Mostly white matter.
and then do you see the gray matter wrapping around it? So the more bumps and grooves we have, the more gray matter we have. Do you see that? Because it goes up and over more. So that's why the more bumps and grooves, the more neurons you have, the better processing power you have. So species with more grooves, bumps and grooves, are gonna be, quote unquote, smarter, I guess. Can't really, but you're intaking more information, right? They're processing more information. All right, so you can see the gray matter on there. So that's kind of cool just to see the gray matter and white matter. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now here. So this is cerebellum, obviously. Okay, right here, I want you to note an area of white matter. Yes, do you see this? Okay, this is the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is going to be the white matter, the only white matter that communicates between the left brain and the right brain. Okay, that's the corpus callosum. Yep, the corpus callosum right there. Right below the corpus callosum, okay, there's going to be a space that goes into your ventricles. Okay, the ventricles are going to be located inside of your brain on the cerebrum. We call them the lateral ventricles. And there's a third ventricle that's located right here. And then the fourth ventricle, which is located right here. Okay, and then there's going to be a little path to get to that. We call the cerebral aqueduct. I'll point it out on this side. I think it's better. Okay, and then this stuff that I pulled out, by the way, this stuff is the choroid plexus. Okay, you were still recording, right?
Yes.
Okay, the choroid plexus. The choroid plexus is blood vessels, and from there is one of the areas where we draw out blood fluid and we create cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, so it's basically cerebrospinal fluid is like a filtration sort of your blood plasma. It doesn't have quite the same content of ions and especially proteins. It doesn't have a lot of proteins. Actually has no proteins pretty much. So it's going to be composition wise a little different, but that's where it comes from. And that's where one of the places where we filtered is this set of blood vessels that I pulled out of inside here called the choroid plexus. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, that space inside, remember, is the ventricle. That's the lateral ventricle in there. Okay, this is, let me see here. I think this one's a little better. The space here is the third ventricle. Okay, and then the fourth ventricle is over here. Okay, the fourth ventricle is right here. So between the pons and the cerebellum is the fourth ventricle. So if the pointer were here, okay, and it said space on your question, remember those little card that had questions on it that most of you didn't read? Read them, okay, this time. And if it says in parentheses space, then you know you're talking about the fourth ventricle. If here it said, it's kind of the same thing. If it said space, then you would say third ventricle. And then here, if it said space, you would say cerebral aqueduct, okay? So you have your third ventricle, you have the space, and then you have the fourth ventricle. Now, the third ventricle, the wall, if it said name the structure, that structure would be the thalamus. Those make the walls of your third ventricle. So there's a little space in between. Your third ventricle is kind of a flat space like this. The walls are the thalamus, and then the space in the middle is the third ventricle. Then the little third ventricle has a little canal. It's called the cerebral aqueduct. It goes to the fourth ventricle, which is over here. Okay?
That's the fourth.
Fourth ventricle. Third ventricle's over here. Fourth ventricle's over here. Okay?
Well, what else are we likely to see on your practice?
Everything that I just mentioned, you're likely
No,
to
but
see.
is there anything else?
Right. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. Well, the hypothalamus is, okay, wherever your pituitary gland is. Pituitary gland is right out of here, so your hypothalamus would be right in this area, and it's not going to be. Do you see here? You see right there? You see that little H shape right here? This? That's your hypothalamus. Okay, this is your third. This is your ventricle right there. Cause see how there's a space. But you know how your hypothalamus has that shape, even in humans, has that shape. That's your hypothalamus. So you're going to point it out? No. Right there. Notice that it looks like this, like that, and like that. That's your hypothalamus. And in humans, it has exactly the same shape. Beautiful. Me like that. Not gonna be on the practicals. Okay. No, it's too small. It's too hard to point to that particular structure.
I usually just answered nucleus anyway.
There you go. Somebody bring me the brain.
You have the brain.
No, the brain, the real brain that's back there over there.
I was gonna say all this time.
Where is it?
Yeah, there's like a green one or something like that. Stop
So you're
recording.
done with that?